Dallas, Texas. In the last seconds of his presence at the stadium, BTS's Jin stood in the doorway of the official vehicle, raising his hand in a slow motion towards a sea army that still survives even though the concert is over. The previously boisterous atmosphere suddenly fell silent for a moment, as if time had frozen, when the fans realized that this was not just an ordinary farewell greeting. This is the emotional closing of a moment that will go down in the history of BTS's Jin solo tour in the United States. I ask this a signal that there is something that Jin feels but cannot say directly. Jin's departure from Dallas Stadium wasn't just a physical transition from one city to the next. The moment reflects an emotional transition, from celebration to silence. From the excitement of the masses to the realization that the moment will not be repeated exactly the same way. The wave of the genie's hand symbolizes the end of an act, and although it is not accompanied by a long speech, the gesture carries a stronger meaning than words. It is important to note that before leaving the site, Jin turned his head several times, looking in the direction of the stands where part of the fans were still standing without a word. There is no musical accompaniment, no light effect. Only the genie, the army, and the silence meet each other in the mid-air of a Texas night. The event took place shortly after the last meet-and-greet session was over, marking the end of her stage performances and public activities for the day. Some fans captured the moment on camera and uploaded it in no time. But what is astonishing is not the image quality or the shooting angle, but the expression on Jin's face that almost undeniably holds something. His face looked tough, but it couldn't mask the subtle tension around his eyes. A small wave is not only a goodbye, but also perhaps a silent plea. Remember me. I came back for you, but I'm also human. ARMY's reaction was no less emotional. Some fans were seen shedding tears, even before Jin's vehicle actually left the stadium area. Many stood sculpted, as if not ready to accept the fact that the concert was really over. Most of them did not just come to enjoy the music performance, but came as a form of respect for idols that for the past 2 years they could only see from a distance. Interestingly, some reports say that Jin had delivered a short sentence to his team before entering the car. The sentence was not clearly audible, but the words, "I will not forget tonight," were mentioned by one of the crew as a message Jin uttered while staring at the stage he had just left. This reinforced the suspicion that the concert in Dallas was not an ordinary moment for him. Not a few fans shared their personal reflections on social platforms, saying that they felt like Jin conveyed the feeling of loss. Some even said that the atmosphere at the end of the concert that night was more sad than in previous cities. There is no official statement from HYB's agency on this, but the public understands that Jin is a person who often chooses to convey his emotions through simple gestures rather than overt words. On the other hand, Jin's decision to wave his hand slowly, stare at the fans one by one, even open the windows briefly before the car actually moved, those were all not actions done without full awareness. This is a touching silent form of communication. Nonverbal communication that is understandable only to those who follow the genie not just as an artist, but as a person. When the footage went viral, the ARMY community around the world began to respond with various online campaigns. Several hashtags supporting Jin appeared organically in less than an hour. The short video was then accompanied by captions such as "We will not forget either" and "Thank you, Jin." It became evident that Jin's emotional resonance was very deep, and that the communication he established with ARMY never needed many words. The next question is, will this moment be the emotional finale of the concert in Dallas? Or is it just the beginning of a new message that Jin will continue to carry throughout the next tour? Many believe that the breakup harbors a hidden meaning that has not yet been fully revealed. In the context of career and public image, Jin is known as a figure who is very professional. However, he is also known to be honest about his feelings, especially in interactions with fans. It is this combination of emotional control and sincerity that makes every little gesture of the genie so meaningful in the eyes of the public. The farewell event in Dallas wasn't just about ending one concert. It is a portrait of a two-way emotional connection between idols and fans that has been building for more than a decade. The wave of Jin's hand conveyed that although distance, time, and schedule would separate them, the connection would not be lost. And in the silence of late-night Dallas, It all felt real. For those of you who read this report and feel touched, the question now is, how did you interpret the breakup? Do you think the Jin are truly happy as they appear, or is there something deeper he is hiding? If you want to keep up with BTS's emotional journey and other historical moments on this tour, be sure to subscribe now so you don't miss important information. Because in every concert, there is always a story that is not spoken, but felt to the heart. ARMY. It's time for you to speak up. What does the wave of the genie's hand mean to you? But behind the touching moment, an important question begins to arise in the minds of many. Is what we see really spontaneous, emotional, and purely from the heart of the genie? Or is it just part of a narrative deliberately shaped to create a wave of public empathy? In the information age that moves so fast, this kind of question is not only natural, but very necessary to ask. The video showing Jin waving to the fans does look emotional. However, it should be noted, the video came from several fansite accounts that uploaded it to TikTok and Twitter in almost the same time. This has led to speculation that the narrative formed may have been designed in such a way, whether consciously or unconsciously, to lead public opinion to a single, uniform emotional conclusion. Is it possible that this farewell has already been declassified? Was Jin asked to leave an impression, to strengthen his brand image ahead of his next event in Tampa? It's important to realize that South Korea's entertainment industry, and in this case HYB as BTS's main agency, has proven itself good at managing public perception time and time again. They understand very well that every movement, expression, to the wave of an artist's hand can have a symbolic value and high virality. Then a follow-up question arises. To what extent can we trust that the genie moment in Dallas is a natural manifestation, not the result of direction or narrative strategy? We do not intend to accuse or diminish the emotional value of the moment. On the contrary, we invite you, our readers and viewers, not to respond to any content with a passive attitude. Is there any direct evidence that Jin is really sad? Is the gesture consistent with previous emotional statements? Or could it be just a one-sided interpretation driven by the public atmosphere and the expectations of the fans? Skepticism in consuming information, especially viral ones, becomes very important. The fact that the footage is now widespread on various platforms, TikTok, YouTube Shorts, to X, formerly Twitter, does show how strong the emotional impact can be. However, is the emotional effect equivalent to the factual truth? Keep in mind, short videos are often truncated, don't present the full context, and are easily manipulated by narratives built around those visuals. Moreover, in situations where fandom has a very high emotional attachment to its idols, the line between reality and illusion can become blurred. Did we really see the real genie that night? Or did we just see the version of the genie we wanted to believe in? This is a profound question worth pondering by every ARMY and media observer. Some fans even said that the moving atmosphere felt excessive. Some voiced their doubts about the authenticity of the Jin's reaction. Comments like, "Is this part of a promotional strategy for Tampa's agenda?" Or, "Why is Jin's expression more emotional when the fans' cameras are recording?" It shows that not everyone takes this narrative on its face. And perhaps it is a healthy step in addressing the current flood of information. Meanwhile, HYB herself has not yet given an official statement regarding the moment. There was no confirmation whether Jin actually delivered sentences like, "I won't forget tonight," to his team. All of that comes from indirect sources, namely the recognition of fans or crew who are not identified. Then it is worth asking, is this information worth trusting? Or is it just part of a stream of speculation that is intentionally or unintentionally amplified by the public? In this case, readers are expected to be able to cross-verify, not just stick to one platform or a single narrative. When one emotional moment is immediately framed as a tearful farewell, without any context or clarification from the official side, then it is very likely that we are being led into a pre-constructed narrative. Of course, not all forms of constructed narrative should be perceived negatively. Sometimes, nonverbal forms of communication, such as a wave of a genie's hand, actually open up a rich and touching space for interpretation. However, as consumers of information, we still have to question, is what we capture a reflection of reality, or is it just the result of imagery that has been polished in such a way? As such, we invite you to think critically, reflectively, and skeptically of any information consumed, including this article. Ask yourself, does this information come from a verifiable source? Is there a possibility that this is a form of media engineering? Who benefits from the virality of this moment? We would also like to emphasize that the various information we present in this article comes from a number of open sources, including TikTok, YouTube, X, as well as various media and fan platforms. However, the final truth of each event cannot necessarily be verified directly. Therefore, it is important for all of us not to swallow every narrative raw, especially if the information is full of emotional nuances and public sentiment. In conclusion, we do not want to diminish the significance of Jin's moment in Dallas. But we don't want to build illusions either. Genie's farewell from Dallas Stadium does look touching, but touching doesn't necessarily mean honest. And being honest doesn't necessarily mean not being engineered. Therefore, we leave it to you, readers. Do you believe this is pure emotion, or is it just part of the calculated strategy of the entertainment industry? If you want to keep abreast of in-depth discussions like this and not miss important information about BTS Jin and the complex world of K-pop, don't forget to subscribe and activate notifications right now. Because not everything that looks emotional is real, and not everything that touches the heart comes from sincerity.